Ding. That's why we spend a bit of time doing this. Live is on, it says.
It does. Let's have a look. I'm checking to see.
So if you're happy, I'll announce it all.
Indeed. Let's go.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, and assembled company. Welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. Tonight, coming live from Suffolk, Marrakesh, and Switzerland. Well, and a bit of Gloucestershire, and so
anywhere else.
And in fact, we are for a moment in the actual physical cafe in Marrakesh, which is a miracle. It's usually just got a symbol up and Waleed in the background, but we're privileged to have in the cafe tonight Omar himself, our resident storyteller.
Yay!
In Marrakesh, who is doing phenomenal things, and Nilima, who I was told about today, who is doing a whole show, a puppet show in the cafe tomorrow. I'm not sure what time, but she will no doubt tell us. And a gentleman next to her who I haven't the faintest idea who he is.
Get Waleed to put your name in the chat, then we'll know.
Yeah. So, and we've got Chris here, and me, and Evita. That's a very fine door behind you. Is that a physical door or a photograph from Marrakesh?
Thank you.
Okay, so Evita's on. Evita's not. Oh, Satish. Yes, fantastic. Welcome. So I'm now going to shut up because I'm going to hit the off switch from me and hand over to our host for tonight.
Thank you so much.
Inimitable, fantastic, the multi-talented Justin Demir.
Thank you so much for that. Welcome everybody to Tales and Tunes from wherever you are in the world. So Tales and Tunes, I'm trying to think who's been before and who hasn't been. If you haven't been before, Tales and Tunes is an open mic and a story and songs and tunes and whatever you want to share. In fact, I have a dog in the background of my house. I don't know if you can hear him, that is wanting to share his particular voice right now to the world. So what we normally do is we start off with a little bit of interactive storytelling from me. So I'm going to create a story on the spot for you from your ideas. So you do have to do a bit of work here. And then we'll go around in the order that you came in. I think that makes sense. And you can share whatever you have to share. And if we get round everybody, then we will go around again. Does that sound all right to everybody? Have I said all the things I need to say? Give me a thumbs up if I have. Thank you. Lovely. Okay. Oh, and I always say, because I always forget to say this, obviously you're entirely free to be here this evening. Donations are very welcome, and I will put my PayPal thing in the chat that just supports my work as a storyteller and the awesome carer that's currently looking after my kid upstairs as well. So all donations greatly appreciated, but absolutely not obliged to. So shall we begin? Evita says, not sure I can tell, just arrived and train back from Paris. Okay, rest. It's cool. I'll come to you if you feel like it, but you don't have to. So let us start with an extreme story. So telling of an extreme story, what I need from you to begin with is who you would like this story to be about. Who would you like a story about this evening? You can put it in the chat or you can shout it out, up to you. Let's have some suggestions.
An armadillo.
An armadillo, nice. That's one of those ones with all the like little kind of rows on it. A wild woman, my favorite kind of story. Lovely. So I've got an armadillo, a wild woman. Any other suggestions that you would like this story to be about? Maybe we can have an armadillo.
Let's have a suggestion from Marrakesh.
Can we have a suggestion from Marrakesh, like who you would like to be the hero of this story? You might, Waleed, you might have to type.
A magician.
A magician. A magician. Very nice. Okay. Let's see what our votes are. I'm going to get you to wave for this. So let's have the amount of waves that you'd like for the armadillo. If you'd like stories about an armadillo, give me a wave now. Oh, little one for me. Thank you. Just the one little wave for that, John. I think you might be on your own. Then waves for a wild woman. Let's have a look. Okay, so Tish, Chris, both going wild woman. Lovely. Vita, I can't see you underneath the captions. I don't know why. Okay, so wild woman's winning so far. And a magician. Waves for a magician. Oh, do you know what? I think the magician might take it. I think, yeah. Neelima, did you just get Satish away? It's like gave him a prod.
Support my own.
Yeah, it was your suggestion, so that's fair. Okay, so our story is about a magician. Lovely. The next thing that we need to decide about this magician is, what does he want more than anything in the world? What is it that he wants in this story that he's maybe going to go on a journey or a quest to get? What would you like him to want? It can be sensible, it can be serious, it can be poignant, or it can just be silly. Again, you can put it in the chat or you can shout it out. What is the purpose of his story? Not to be magical, just to be a normal person. I love that. Are we good with that? Like, he wants to kind of just be ordinary. Can I get a thumbs up if we like that one? Yeah, lovely. So a magician who wants to be ordinary. Lovely. Okay, one last thing I need from you. I say one last thing, I'm still going to ask for ideas along the way. So, who or what is going to try to stop him losing his magical powers and getting the ordinary life he dreams of? Who's going to be our baddie? Who's going to be our villain in this? Let's have a look. Satish, was that an idea or you were just volunteering?
I was sorceress.
A sorceress. Yeah?
Sorceress.
A sorceress. Lovely. Okay. So a sorceress. Lovely. All right. So a sorceress doesn't want him to lose his magical powers. All right. Are you ready then? I shall conjure up this magical and non-magical story for you. Here we go. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a magician. He made his living with magic. He would cast magic spells for those that needed them. And every day people would come and ask him for something to solve, I don't know, their aches and pains, something to solve their relationships, something to get rid of their adversaries. And this was very tiring, as you can imagine. If every single day someone wants something from you, well, it can get exhausting. But here's the thing, he was born with these magical powers. And he didn't know how he could get rid of them. He had always been told by his parents that once a magician, always a magician. But he decided. It'd been a really long day. He'd been giving out magic spells and he'd been casting potions. He'd been doing for every single person that day, and he was tired. And at the end of the day, he thought, right, that's it. I need to get rid of these magical powers. I will go to the ends of the earth. I will do anything that I can just to not be magical anymore, so I can just have a peaceful life with no one knocking on my door and no one asking me anything. Now, if you were a magician and you desperately wanted to get rid of your magical powers, where would be the first place you would go to, or the first person that you would ask for help? Because this is an unusual request. Who shall we ask? Or where should we go to find out? You can shout out or put it in the chat. Entirely up to you.
No. Sources preventing.
Say that again. Well, they'd pop it in the chat. Another magician. That makes sense, doesn't it? So maybe I'd go to another magician. Thank you, Evita. So our magician decided to go to his oldest friend that he'd learnt magic with growing up, learnt to kind of like contain his powers. And he went to his old friend. He said, friend, I know that you've been a magician even longer than I, but I've lost the love for it. I feel like everybody just wants a piece of me all the time, and I would like to just have an ordinary life. I see the people come to my magical surgery, that's what I'm calling it now, and they go away and they get to go about their every ordinary lives. And I just like some of that. And his old friend said, well, it's not something I've ever wanted, but I do understand. Maybe I have a very, very, very old magic book, and it's a spell that I've never had to use. But let's see if there's anything in it. So he goes to the corner of his little hut where he lives, and he opens up the oldest looking book. And sure enough, right at the end of the book, there is some instructions. It says, if you want to lose your magic forever, you must go indeed to the ends of the earth. And the place that you must find is, where is it? Where does this book say that this magician must go to? Takes a long. Did you say Marrakesh? Of course, where all the magic is. So the place you must go to is Marrakesh. You must go into the souks, and at the very end of the last souk that looks like it absolutely doesn't exist. Oh, you go through that, you go down to the well at the Medina, and you go all the way down to the bottom of the well, and there you will meet someone who will be able to help you get rid of your magic powers. Well, the magician thanked his old friend, made sure that he remembered all those instructions, and he left. I haven't decided, where did the magician start? I don't know how we're going to get to Marrakesh from where we are. Where are we?
He's a magician. He can fly there.
He can fly there. Nice.
He's still
So-
got magic.
Should we say he's in Suffolk where I am? Let's give him a nice journey, shall we? So he gets his magic powers and he raises his hands high as magicians do. And with one great shazam, he levitates from the beautiful Suffolk countryside where he is. And he flies across and he goes down across the bottom of England and he goes down over Europe until he reaches the continent of Africa. And he can see that beautiful coastline. And he goes over the country until he can see the lights of Marrakesh below him. And he flies down and down and down and down and down until he is in the Medina. And when he's in the Medina, sure enough, he finds that well right at the Medina. And he looks down and he calls down and says, hello. And there's an echo that comes back, goes, hello, hello. And he thinks, is that just my voice? So he tries again, hello. And the little voice from the bottom of the well goes, hi. And he thinks, well, that's not me. So he says, I've come to try and get rid of my magic. And the little voice said, well, you better get down here then. So he takes off the cover of the well and he lowers himself down and 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 down until he's right at the bottom of the well. And there he meets a very tiny, oh, what creature shall it be? What creature could it be that was talking to him from the bottom of the well? What do you think?
Oh, cockroach.
A cockroach. Lovely. Not enough stories of cockroaches. Sure enough, at the bottom of the well is a very tiny cockroach. So tiny that the magician nearly stands on it. The cockroach says, I've got some bad news for you. The magician says, what do you mean? I've flown all the way from the beautiful countryside of Suffolk. I've landed in Medina. I've come down the well just like it said in the ancient book to get rid of my magic. Cockroach said, yes, I did have the power to take away your magic. You see, cockroaches are obviously magic because we can survive the worst things that humans do and we're still there. But there was a sorceress came along and stole all of my powers to suck up everyone else's magic. The magician said, oh, I really just wanted an ordinary life, cockroach. Where is this sorceress? Let me go and talk to her. Let me see if we can reason with her to give your powers back so you can take mine. And the cockroach said, well, if you want to find the sorceress, you will have to... Where did the cockroach say the sorceress was?
Atlas Mountain.
Say that again.
Mountain.
The top of the mountain.
Atlas.
Oh, top of the Atlas Mountains. Okay. Magician said, really, cockroach? I've just come all the way down this one. Now I'm going to go all the way up to the Atlas Mountains. The cockroach said, it was the place for her. She had to be a long way away so no one could get to her. Magician said, all right then. So he said, now you wait there, cockroach. In fact, cockroach, you come with me. Don't wait there. Let's go and deal with this together. So he took the cockroach on his hand, which meant that when he did the Shazam thing, he had to be very careful. He held this hand in the air, the cockroach in this hand, and he went Shazam, and he levitated out of the well, and he flew out of the city, and he flew out on that long, long plain until he could see the Atlas Mountains in the distance. And as he went, he could see the highest of the Atlas Mountains that are just outside, and he could see right on top of that mountain stood a magnificent sorceress, like bigger than he was. I don't know why she was that big. She just was. And so he landed on the mountain next to her. And he said, sorceress, while it is an honor to meet you, you are clearly a very powerful sorceress. This cockroach here tells me that you have taken away his power to devour other people's magic, and I want an ordinary life. And the sorceress said, but you were born with magic. That's why I took away the cockroach's powers. Magicians should always be magical. Well, the magician knew that he had to reason with her somehow. So let's see, what do you think would make the sorceress change her mind? What could we say to her? What should we try? Let's try reasoning with her first.
A life supply of chocolate.
So the magician said, now we know that all people, whether they're magical or not, love chocolate. And I could, with the last of my magical powers, conjure for you a lifetime supply of chocolate. And it would be the last chocolate of its kind because I'd use the last of my powers for it. And the sorceress said, I'm a sorceress that can stand on top of the Atlas Mountains. Do you think for a second I couldn't have a lifetime supply of chocolate? Try harder, magician. I don't believe you should be an ordinary person. I believe you should be a magician. Well, the magician knew he had to try something else. Now, if you're a magician, could you convince the sorceress? Maybe you could trick her. Is there something we could do that would trick her into giving the cockroach his powers back? I'm still holding this cockroach here, by the way, just in case anyone needs to see it.
Hats.
Like a hat, like wearing a different hat?
Different hats.
The magician thought, I know, I shall come back in disguise. Maybe she won't recognize me. So he put the cockroach on his head and he conjured over it a big hat, like a hat that looked like he was an old wise man. And then, having disappeared the other side of the mountain, he came back round again. He said, very, very serious voice, sorceress, I understand that you are stopping a magician losing his powers. Do you not think you would be more powerful, if you let him lose his powers? Then you would be more unique. And the sorceress looked down at the magician, chucked that hood off his head, took the cockroach off him and said, no, I don't. For goodness sake, you think some disguise like that is going to make a difference? You are going to need to do better than that. Well, the magician knew, as all people do, that story's going 3. So he had one more attempt to get the sorceress to give back the cockroach's power so he could lose his powers to the cockroach and go back and live an ordinary life. Now we need a fail-safe way of getting through to this sorceress or doing something that's going to make her give the cockroach back its powers. Your thoughts for our finale of our story.
Find somebody else to give his powers to.
Say that again.
Giving powers to somebody else.
Giving his powers to somebody. Well, this is what the magician thought in the end. He thought, maybe if a sorceress can give a cockroach the power, can take away the powers of a cockroach, I could make my last magical thing to be just like the sorceress and give the powers back to the cockroach. And you know what? In that moment, he realized that with his magical powers, he didn't need that sorceress at all. And he put the cockroach in front of the sorceress and said, no, I can't believe you realized the power was in you all along. The magician said, I knew I'd get there eventually. He said, cockroach, my last act as a magician is to give you all of my magical powers. And he raised his hands up high, and with a huge shazam, all of his magical powers came out of him, and they went through his fingers into this tiny cockroach. And this tiny cockroach grew and grew and grew and grew. The cockroach said, oh, thank you. I've only ever been able to devour magical powers before, and now I have some of my own. The magician said, shazam, and nothing happened. And he said, shazam, and still nothing happened. He said, shazam. He said, oh, cockroach, I am ordinary. Sorcerer said, oh. He was very annoyed. And she stomped off across the Atlas Mountains, never to be seen or heard from again. The magician said, cockroach, can I have one last favor? Cockroach said, anything. He said, can you fly me home? I'm a bit stuck now on top of the Atlas Mountains. And so the magician that is no longer a magician, jumped on the back of the cockroach, and they flew all the way back across Marrakesh, back across Africa, back across Europe until they landed in the beautiful Suffolk countryside. And the magician, he went about his life. No one bothered him anymore. He had a peaceful time enjoying our beautiful nature. And the cockroach, well, he went back to the Medina in Marrakesh. And the story of what the cockroach did next is another story for another day. For this one ends here. Thank you very much. I enjoyed that immensely, particularly the big flying cockroach at the end.
Okay, that's fantastic. Now we have been joined by Keith from Lincolnshire.
Yay!
And if I am
Fabulous.
not mistaken, it is Keith's birthday today.
Keith, is it your birthday? Can we sing happy birthday?
Happy
Happy
you lead
birthday.
it. You're our
Okay,
leader.
ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy
Happy
birthday
to
to you. Happy birthday, dear Keith. Happy birthday to you. With the sound delay, that was probably the least tuneful birthday you've ever had, Keith. But many happy returns, sir. It's lovely to see you. Ah. Oh. Did I see Mike joined as well? I've kind of lost track of who's here. Oh, well, we'll see. Thank you very much for listening to my interactive story. And
Mike Rust, yeah, Mike Rust is here.
I thought Mike was there. I thought I saw him sneak in there. So shall we start? I can't work out which order people came in. John, did you want to share something first?
Well, I might as well. Just a
You were first.
Here.
So, shall we go John and then Chris? Are you all right to go after John? Yeah?
Yes, I am.
Lovely. And then Omar and Nilima, can we come to you? Lovely. And then we'll come to, I'm not sure if Evita's telling, but if Evita's not, then we'll come to Keith afterwards. Lovely. All right, John, you're up. I'm going to spotlight you, but you can spotlight yourself if it's really annoying.
Okay, I'll just make sure I'm not muted. No, I'm not muted. Fantastic.
Good.
So, in about a week's time or so, there will be a new book out by Hala Gaza Girl. It's Gaza Diaries, and it's very moving. There's, I think it's about 70 pages long. It's not going to be for sale. It's going to be given away, and there'll be a donation bit on the back, which we'll get reprints for, because we would, if this project works out, have thousands on it of copies out. So anyway, I'm just going to read just one bit. It's not all depressing, but I've just chosen one bit. It's called Under the Same Sky. I'm a very simple, calm person, a kind person who enjoys watching a beautiful movie, listening to beautiful music, taking a beautiful photo of the sky and moon, reading a wonderful book, taking a walk with friends, eating a delicious meal, drinking a delicious drink, finding a beautiful piece of artwork, looking at some plants, some flowers, drawing pictures they love, or even sitting in silence, doing nothing. I'm just a simple person in a complex, chaotic world. I like to make the simplest things into beautiful memories, and to make everything I love something to make me feel worthy of life. Watching a calm sky without aeroplanes or fear is something many in my country yearn for. Is it so difficult to achieve? The color of the sky suddenly changes from its calm to a terrifying, frightening color. There are no birds or stars. The moon doesn't come every night and light up our darkness. There are others who take its place. Your firm belief that all of this will soon pass makes you hold hope in your little heart and the darkness of life around you. How harsh and cruel our reality is. We are sitting peacefully when suddenly we heard a terrifying sound. Suddenly the warplanes, which never leave the sky, unleash their wrath, a rage they never hide from us. Innocents and civilians are killed without justification. We live under one sky, but injustice has prevailed over us for 10 months. We are tired of talking. We don't want to talk. Film or recount our suffering in this bloody war? Would you believe me if I told you they bombed it for the third time in a row? I feel fear, anxiety, and reluctance to continue. I'm afraid of death. I'd be lying if I said I'm not afraid of death. Death is very difficult. The fear of losing loved ones, how many I've lost in this war, their deaths crushing me deeply. The fear of losing a limb causes the nightmare of fear. The fear of bombing of the tower we've now fled to and watching my family die before my eyes. The fear of everything. I'm even afraid of my own shadow. The moon is bright and reassuring in the midst of darkness. The sky is pitch black and filled with warplanes. There are no stars, or rather, I can't distinguish between them. The moon is bright tonight. That's why I love the moon and wish it would come every night.
Wow. That girl. That's amazing. So when is that out? Like when?
Well, it was gone to print, so it should be out in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, cool. And where will we be able to get it?
There'll be a QR code in the back, so we'll give it away, and people can just donate on that, and that'll be split between more reprints, because the important thing is to get the book out to as many people as possible. And then we're setting up a crowdfunding thing, which we use for my book, same principle, to get more copies printed.
So will you be able to like give us the link? I can stick it in the Tales and Tunes.
That will be as soon as in about 2 weeks' time. That's just a preview. We will do a link on a launch of it on the cafe, and I want to get other people reading bits from it, and get maybe link with David Heathfield and see if we can get some of the Palestinian teachers that are in this country reading bits of it for the launch. But I just thought I'd announce it on tonight's show.
Thank you very much. We are honoured to have it announced on tonight. That's just great. Thank you, John. Right, we are going across to Chris now. Chris, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Lovely. Let me spotlight.
Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you're at. My name is Chris Bell. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. In my story, I'm going to refer to soccer, football, and when I talk about football, I'm talking about American football. It's Saturday morning. I'm watching my son Zach play soccer, and his team is getting massacred. This sixth grade motley crew is all scattered across the field like a cloud of confused tadpoles. All you can hear is the sound of penalty whistles, bickering, and disappointment. Across the field, the other team is already celebrating. Their coach, who I call Mr. Sunglasses, fires finger guns at our kids and shouts, "Booyah," another one bites the dust. Now, I thought we were supposed to be teaching these kids how to kick a ball, not how to kick other people when they're down. So, powered by the groans of several other pissed off parents, I march over to the sidelines and do the one thing I can think of that won't result in a court case. I start cheering for my son's team. But I don't only cheer, I put on a whole halftime show. I'm dancing and prancing with invisible pom-poms, and soon the other parents start joining in, and we send out enough support to fill the Goodyear blimp and make it soar. As a result, they still lose, 17-1. After the game, my son limps over, covered in dirt, and says, "Dad, please don't cheer for me anymore. It's embarrassing." And my smile freezes, because in that moment, I'm brought back to being my first year in high school. I'm about 14 years old. I'm practicing on the football field for my first game, and it's not going very well. As a running back, my job is simple. When the quarterback holds out the ball, I grab it and run for a touchdown. But the problem is, I get nervous anytime I hold the ball, so I always fumble. And to be honest, I know more about Dungeons and Dragons than I do touchdowns and tackles. On the other hand, my father, he was a great football star in high school. So after work, he'd spend hours watching the game instead of battling evil wizards with me. But when I told him I made the football team, his eyes lit up like I said the Super Bowl. He said after my first game, we can even go get some pizza after the game. So I don't want him to come and see me fumble the ball. I just want him to come and see, you know, that I'm a little like him. So over the next week, I spent hours after school practicing three basic movements: spread my fingers, grip the ball, tuck it in tight. Over and over, I practiced this until my hands ache and my fears callous. Eventually, I'm holding onto that ball like it's the only chance I have to connect with my dad. On game day, we faced the Titans, a towering team of 25 who all look like grown men who pay bills and barbecue. Now I'm in the huddle, heart pounding. I spot my father sitting in the stands with the other parents. The coach calls out, "Sweep right," and I know I'm about to get the ball. Unfortunately, the Titans know too. The play starts. I sprint towards the quarterback who's impatiently holding out the ball. The Titans come crashing in, tossing our team around like gorillas escaping the zoo on Family Fun Day. But I dip my shoulders, lunge forward, and just before our quarterback crumbles, I clamp onto that ball like a vice grip. I got it, and I'm not letting go. Now, I was so focused on not fumbling the ball, I never stopped to think about what I'd actually do once I got it. That's when a wall of bodies blocks out the sun. I cut left, cut right, looking for daylight, but all I find are hands and helmets. My body hits the ground with the force of a skydiver whose parachute doesn't open. My rib cage compresses like an accordion as my soul shoots out of my sternum with a high-pitched squeal. And after the ref peels piles of players off me, I stagger to my feet in full body agony. And that's when a voice rises from the crowd and shouts out words that I will never forget. "What the hell is he doing? Running like a damn chicken with no head. I guess they just let anyone on this team." Now, before the game, the coach warned us that some of the other players or even their parents might shout some things out to get us distracted, but this was different. So as I hobble back to the huddle and the criticism gets louder, I just keep my head down, hoping no one can see the tears forming under my helmet. Because I'm being mocked right now in front of my entire school. And that voice, it's my father. The next play, the coach decides to give me another chance. Sweep left. And this time, I just fumbled the ball. After the game, there's no pizza, no conversation, or even football. I grow up not really seeing what my father said as being wrong. I just see it as another thing where I proved that I just wasn't good enough. But as I learn more about his history, I start to suspect that there was someone he loved very much who always made him feel the same way. Now I'm the father, standing on the soccer field, and my son, he's asking me not to cheer for him. And as difficult as it is, I try not to explain. I just meekly smile and agree. And as he runs to the car, excited because we're about to go get some pizza, I just hope he knows that if he ever does want me to cheer for him, I will. Because I already know what happens when a child is always knocked down. And I just want to see what could happen if a child is consistently built up. Maybe, just maybe, things will be different. Thank you.
Wow. That was beautiful, Greg. Oh, loved it. Thank you. I'm tearing up now. Oh, it's so just you always just draw me right into your world, and I'm just there. Just thank you so much.
Thank
That
you.
was great. Okay, we are going live to the World Storytelling Cafe now. Omar, are you ready? I don't know how close you're going to have to get for us to hear you. I'm going to leave Waleed to work that out. What do you think?
You hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to do a short story, and I hope you like the story, right? Go. In this beautiful city of Marrakech, there live two brothers. Let's give them names. If you know some names in Morocco, besides Omar. Khaled. We have Khaled, we have Omar, and we have Walid. Khaled and Walid. Khaled is one of the richest men in Marrakech. He's very known as the friend of the kings, of the prime minister, the best businessman. But he is a little bit selfish man. He never cared about anyone in this world in Marrakech. Even his brother, Walid, who used to be like very normal man, average man, used to be a clay craft man. He has the craft in his hands. One day, Walid went to his place, went to his shop, and he's doing his job with the clay. It was the first day, he got nothing. The second day, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day, the sixth day, the seventh day. And he started thinking, what am I going to do right now? I need to put food on the table. My parents are still alive. They need me. My children, my wife. So then he started thinking of doing something. He's a clay craft man. He sat in his shop. It was dark. It was night. And then what he did, he put a piece of fabric, he put some oil, he put some clay on it, played with it with a magical way. And he played, and he created a magic lamp. And he was so happy and excited. Yes! I made a magic lamp! I made a magic lamp! He went out and was shouting in the souk. I made a magic lamp. All the people said, what a magic lamp is. I want to say that we buy that from you. No. When back in the time when we do have such like this, like when we have such things like this, very precious things, we do give it to the Sultan as a gift. And I see when he went to the Sultan's palace, Your Majesty, I do have like a special gift to offer you this day. I made this magic lamp. His Majesty looked at the magic lamp and he laughed it. And he said to him, wow, you are a good man. Give me a gift. As we said in Arabic, صدقة لنا الهدية لنا والصدقة لغيرنا. So he gave him like a lot of gold and coins to be one of the richest men in Marrakech, to be more and more rich than his brother Khalid. Like his life turns around in a blink of an eye, in a flash of a moment, from very poor man to a very rich man and very important man in this society. When his like friend or his brother heard about him, like he was very upset. What, my friend, my brother got a lot of money from the Sultan, and I am his brother. I need to do something so that I be more rich than my brother. He went to the Sultan's palace, but before that, he went to the souk. He sell everything to his name. Everything to his name. To create a very, very big golden crown. He went to the Sultan's palace. The Sultan knew him and said to him, Your Majesty, I am giving this big golden crown to you as a gift. And the Sultan said to him, You are a friend of me. Money, you have. Power, you already have. So what am I going to give you, my friend, Wal Khalid? And guess what he gave him? Oh, the land. The land! He gave him the land that his brother gave it him at the first place. And he got more upset, and he went back home to his wife and he said, no money, no food anymore. Gharla, as we said in Moroccan Darija. So it was a bad situation for a long time. And one day he heard someone knock the door very hardly. And he was a little bit scared. Knocking the door like this. He opened the door and he found his brother. He found Walid. And Walid came to him and said, my brother, I needed you for a long time. You did not help me. And today you need me. But I'm going to help you. And guess what he gave him? He gave him half of his fortune. He shared it with him. And he said to him, you are my friend, you are my brother, we are like soulmates. Let's turn the page of the past. I know that life turns around, and it was true. You are very rich, and now you are very poor, and I was very poor, and now I'm very rich. Let's just turn the page of the past. And he gave him a hug like this. And he said, okay, let's forgive me and ask forgiveness. And he gave him a hug like this. Until then, happily ever after. Till the end of their time. And this is the end of the story.
Thank you, Omar. That was amazing. I loved it. Nilima, did you want to share something?
I am going to be talking about myself. So the Nilima story. Yeah.
No. Yes, go for it.
Yeah, there. So Nilima grew up in India. Nilima was born in, I'm going to talk about myself in the third person. So Nilima was brought up in Hyderabad, a southern Indian city in India. She moved to UK. She moved to London in 1996 to study chemistry at Imperial College and came on a prestigious scholarship. Now she did enjoy the course and wanted to do something wonderful in chemistry, wanted to do a PhD in chemistry doing drug discovery. By then, she was already married to this young man who's no longer young, and they had their first baby in the year that she was pursuing her first year of PhD. She discontinued her PhD to look after the baby, and then she transitioned into becoming a software developer, which she did for 5 years. Then she had a second child. Once she had a second child, she decided that she would rather enjoy being a mother to these two lovely boys, and the storytelling started there. So as Nilima started enjoying the bright side of being a mother, she discovered storytelling in different formats, and one of them is through puppets and through audiobooks. So as her boys started growing up and taking more and more interest in stories, she realized that they were also keen to understand stories from India, which they used to visit very often. And one such story was the Diwali story. Diwali is one of the biggest festivals from India. And Nilima was thrilled because she thought, oh, if the boys were keen to understand such a significant story from India, it naturally pleased her, having grown up there. So the boys, who were called Shreyas and Ayur, understood the story in detail, and over a few years, rewrote the story in a manner which, when narrated, became an hour-long audiobook. And that's where Nilima transitioned from being a mother into this produces audiobooks. So the first audiobook was on this Diwali story, which was called Ramayana, which is a story, an ancient Indian epic, which she published as her sons as the narrators. And she hit the ground running with her first audiobook, and it was featured in the Times UK as one of the top 10 audiobooks of 2017. And then the ball set in rolling, basically. And then she went back to India. India is a country with multiple languages, and she went back to her city and got it translated into 2 Indian languages, worked with students from different schools, and got it narrated in those languages. Now, as the kids were growing up, she also realized that she only wanted to work with teenagers because there's a certain energy and enthusiasm and spontaneity that teenagers have, and they add their own uninhibited dimension to a story. So the second story that she was very keen for her sons to understand was the Indian independence. Having grown up in Britain, she thought the boys needed to understand the story that connected India and the UK. So by then, her older son was 20, so she couldn't work with him because he was not a teenager. But the younger one, Ayur, was very keen to work with her. So she got him to team up with a boy from India, and then she produced the second audiobook, which is called A Brief History of Indian Independence from the Mughals to the Mahatma. So it starts from the journey of East India Company entering India during the Mughal period, and then India winning its independence in 1947 as an hour-long audiobook. Again, she received huge accolades for that audiobook, narrated by Ayur and his co-author Arush. She also worked with elderly community to produce short stories like the beautiful ones we have heard, but very pertinent to the state in India where she comes from. And the puppet show is the crowning glory in her journey so far. So the puppet show conveys the Diwali story with 6 beautifully handcrafted puppets, all made in London. And it's work in progress. And to see that live tomorrow, I'm holding a session here at the World Storytelling Cafe. It's a 15-minute puppet show that conveys this Diwali story, and we can have an interactive session with Omar and whoever is around. Thank you for your time, and we'll continue to follow and join you every Sunday? No, where are we today? Thursday. Sorry, we're on holiday. Every day feels like Sunday, but thank you again. Thank you to Walid and to Mike and to you both too for giving me this chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Nilima. That was fascinating.
And
Love it.
we'd love you to do a Friday for us on when you're back in London.
Yes.
For the cafe. We have on every Friday we have a Zoom like this, but with one person, and they do stories for children, children of all ages, 0 to 200, and so we would love you to be to do a Friday for us then. So get in touch with us when you're back in London, will you?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry to back into your show there, Justine.
That's entirely
I was
fine.
just taking
Doug.
that opportunity.
You got to jump in while you can. It's so fun. I watched a play recently. So Eastern Angles, that I'm an associate artist for, they did a play about Sophia Dulip Singh, who was amazing in the suffragette movement and kind of when everything was being independent. So like Indian history is like right in my face at the moment. So it's like really timely that you're here. It's very exciting. Oh God, it's such a great night. Okay, we are going to go to the birthday boy next. Keith, are you ready?
I'm going to pass this time. Next
I
time.
can do that. Yes. Yes. Well, thank you for your greeting today, and wish me happy birthday. That was nice. And just to sort of fill in a bit of background, that I live in Lincolnshire, which is in the sort of east side of the UK, and I live about 20 miles north of Boston, Chris.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
Small world.
So I live in the Lincolnshire Wolds, rolling hills right through the middle of Lincolnshire. People say it's flat, but there actually some rolling chalk hills, not very high, but they just break up the landscape. And there's a North Sea over on the east. And over the last few weeks, we've had this very, very cold wind that's been blowing off the sea, even though it's been very sunny and hot in the shade. It's out of the wind in the lee, but it's been really cold if you're in the wind, like it was today. Because we went down and had a meal down in Mablethorpe, and we had a walk along the prom, and it was really cold, although it was sunny. Right. So now my great grandfather, or thereabouts, was Harry. And he wanted to get married to Mary. And so he went to see the vicar to make the arrangements. And the vicar said, well, what's your name, son? And he said, Harry Booters. And the vicar wrote down Butters, because that's my surname, Butters, Butters. But the vicar wrote down Bootrs, because that was what Harry was. He was a bootmaker. And that's where the name came from, although that it was changed later to Butters, as the vicar wrote down Butters instead of Booters, because I got that the wrong way around. But that's the way it was. And for generations, my grandparents and great-grandparents, they were bootmakers. They could make a pair of boots and shoes from scratch. Now, my great-great-grandfather, his name was Jabus. And he was a bootmaker, and he worked in a little bootmaker shop just beside his cottage in South Ormsby. And he'd arranged to go and see his girlfriend Harriet, who lived and worked in Ormsby Hall. Now, he wasn't normally allowed to go and see his girlfriend Harriet because, well, girls that lived in and servants, they weren't allowed visitors. But Jabez knew that the squire was away from home for a while, the squire and his family. And so it was a winter's day, so he stoked down the fire in his bootmaker shop, went to his cottage and took off his leather apron, put on his warm coat and his cap, and he walked down the lane and past, it's there you can see in South Ormsby, there's Ring Hill that goes round the hill and up to a place called Tetford. I think, oh, I must go and remind Mr. Smith that his boots are ready. And so he walked a bit further, and then on top of the hill there was St. Lawrence's Church. I was thinking, yes, I must go and see the vicar and arrange for getting married to Harriet. A little bit further along, there's on the left-hand side, it's still there, there's the old school where he, when he was a lad, and his father went to school, because in those days everybody lived in the same village for generations after generations. But the school is just a building there now. It's not a school anymore as for children, but it's still a building stands. And he walked down the lane, and over the left-hand side there was the parkland, which is in the middle of the parkland was Ormsby Hall. The parkland was covered with grass and was dotted around with trees, and there was a lake at one side of the hall, and the ducks were flying off from the lake. And down the centre of the park was the main drive to the hall. But he didn't go down the main drive. He walked on past the main drive and down the side of the park along the lane, and he shivered a bit. There was this cold east wind that was blowing off the North Sea, and a few flakes of snow because it was winter time. But he didn't think anything, but he walked on. And he came on past, on the right-hand side then, there was the Massenburgh Arms. It's a pub that's still there and still serves a good pint. And you look through the window and you can see that the landlord was stoking up the fire, ready for his guests in the evening. We went on a bit farther, and just next to the pub was the forge, the blacksmith shop. And there Mr. Crow was coming out of the blacksmith shop at the end of his day. He said to Jabez, "Now, Jab, do you fancy a pint later on?" No, I can't do that," he says. "All right," says Mr. Crow, and he went on, "Perhaps another day." He went back to his home. And Jabez walked on. He came to a crossroads, and there's an old Celtic road that ran across the. It's a paved road. It's a proper road, but it was the old Celtic track that ran all the way from the coast near Borough right through to Caister. And if it had carried on over the road, it had gone down into Ketspin, up into Wormsgate. And many, many years ago, before Jabez ever was alive, there was a dragon that lived at Wormsgate. But that's another story. And so he turned left onto the Bluestone Heath Road, the old Celtic road, a few hundred yards along there, and he turned left into the back drive of Ormsby Hall. Went and he knocked on the door, and Harriet opened the door and smiled and welcomed him in, and they spent the evening together in the parlour there, kissing and hugging and doing what young people do. And it come to say good night. And he opened the back door and said, "Look there, lass, I can't go out of there. There's inch and a half of snow. Everybody'll know to be at sea and you'll get in trouble. Lass, let me out the front door." "No," she says, "I can't do that, GM. No, it's more my job, so I have to let you through the hall." "Lass, just trust me." And so they lit a candle, and very carefully they walked all the way through from the parlour, through the main part of the hall to the front door. They kissed good night, and he opened the door, and without a word of a lie, he stepped out backwards onto the doorstep, and he mantled around in the snow, and he walked backwards all the way down the main drive till he got to the lane that he'd walked along earlier on. And he went back to his cottage thinking, I'll go away with that. But next morning, there was a maid and a gardener and a groom that came and saw the footprints in the snow. I said, "Look there, Squire's home, we'll get in trouble because we're late to work." Until I found out that it was Jabez that had been to see his girlfriend the previous night. Now, I told that story to a group of elderly people in Alford some time ago now, and there's a chap there called Mr. Holgath. He said, "Hey, I knew old Jeb, and I knew what he got up to that night. It's absolutely true what you told us." And so, boys and girls, the lesson is this: don't go a-courting on a snowy night.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Keith. Oh, I love hearing like regional accents. It's just fabulous. Oh, love it. I have to drag out my Suffolk one for you. Lovely. Okay, I think Mike and Avita are just listening tonight, which means Norman, you were last in, so we're coming to you.
Okay, then I'm trying to think of a story. I told it recently? Not so recently.
I love hearing your stories again, though. Norman.
Okay, then.
That you can do your greatest hits here. It makes me happy.
Am I okay, then. Just a second. See if we can get the original sound back. Original sound on. Let's see.
Got it? Yeah, play it and see if we can hear. Yes, you have the whistle.
Okay. Once there's a young lad, and this story went on for so long that he became an old lad traveling along the road. But he had plenty of stories and a bit of wit and stories for a bit of crack on the way, so he got along best as he could as he was walking along. But times were a bit hard this particular day. He hadn't had a bite to eat for all the long day. So his luck and his wits had kind of left him. You know, things, even for a storyteller, things can get a bit rough. So he came to a castle of a king. "Ah, just the place for me to be," he says. "Maybe the king will give me a place to stay and a bite to eat and something hot to drink." And the steward welcomed him in. And he says, "Well," he says, "you can come in." And he says, "We'll bring you to the king. He's just sitting down to dinner." "Just the man I wish to meet," said the traveling storyteller. So the king welcomed to the table, And he said, sit down yourself and enjoy the meal we are about to eat. Now, I must tell you, though, I don't like lies. And if you tell a lie while we are sitting down to dinner, out you go into the cold night. And it was one of those frosty nights. And he says, well, yeah, I think I can manage that. You know, he's a storyteller, but he has to tell lies. Oh, but he'll figure something out. So there it was. The king said, okay, they called in for the meat. It was a big bowl of soup, and with lots of vegetables and turnips, and also I'm beginning to get hungry just thinking about it. So there he was, and the king handed him a big spoon, and they went to it. And they filled and they slurped and they talked and they joked and they had a good time. And finally, the bowls were empty, and the king says, would you like some more? There's roast beef coming up. No, I'm full, said the man. I couldn't eat another bite. Okay then, said the king. But when the roast came in, it was just all crackling and the drippings from it and the smell. And the fellow's the storyteller's mouth was watering, and the king noticed this. Would you like to have some of this roast beef? Oh, I'd love a slice. And the king cut a large slice of it and put it on a trencher. And he says, well, that's the first lie you've told tonight. But I've liked your crack, and so you can stay with me. But when this dinner is done, I will have you out on the road where you belong. So the king and the storyteller, they ate and they drank, and the slice of roast beef went down as quickly as it takes to tell this story. And then, when they were done, the king says, okay, time for dessert. And in came a huge, what kind of cake would you like for dessert in this story? Anyone?
Chocolate.
What?
Chocolate.
I'd like
This
coffee
is
and
not a
walnuts.
joke. That's exactly what I have in mind in this story. It was a triple chocolate with caramel running through it like gold through a mine. Well, the steward cut a big slice for the king because he loved that chocolate cake. And the storyteller traveler just looked at that cake, and his mouth was watering, and king noticed this too. He says, would you like a piece of this, a slice of this cake? Oh, I love some. He said, oh, well, said king, that's the second lie you've told. And but you will have a slice, and then unfortunately at last you'll be out on the road when we're done. We'll see about that, said the traveler storyteller. And so they ate and they drank, and they came out with some big pot of tea, and they drank that down, and it was a fine way to end a meal. And so the king was sitting there burping away, and the traveling storyteller was sitting there burping away, to show a proper appreciation to everything they just enjoyed. The king says, well, I've enjoyed your company, fellow, but I'm sorry to see that you're going out on the road. But there's the door on your way. Why? Because you've told a lie. No, I didn't tell any lies, said the traveler. What do you mean, said the king. You said you were full twice. Yes, I said I was full, but I wasn't full. And so he says, well, and I can prove it too. He said, well, how are you going to prove that? And the traveler storyteller says, it's very simple. What I want you to do is bring in a bucket of rocks. This is so intriguing that the king immediately said to the steward, go and get some rocks in a bucket and fill up that bucket with those rocks. And he says, and they came in with the bucket of rocks. And those who know their rocks will recognize all of the various kinds of rocks in the bucket, but this is not a story for geology or anything like that, so we have to get on with it. So, the fellow says, the traveler storyteller asked the king, does this look like it's full? Oh, it's full. You can put another thing into it. He says, well then, said the traveler storyteller, bring in some sand. Sand? Bring in the sand. And the sand was brought in, and the sand was poured in between the rocks, and it went trickle, 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 until at last there's a nice, smooth surface. And Traveler Storyteller says, "Hey, does it look like it's full?" "Looks pretty full to me. You couldn't get another grain of sand in it." He says, "Yes," said the fellow, "but now I want you to bring," and what do you think he brought in? He called for, it was bring me a bucket of water. No, and the bucket of water was brought in, and now the king was absolutely curious. How is he going to get more in? And he just poured the water carefully, gently, dripping down, and the water began to fill up between the grains of sand until at last there was a pool of water in the bucket. "And does it look full now?" said the Traveler Storyteller. "Yes," said the king, "it's full." "And indeed it is full," said the Traveler Storyteller. "And that's exactly the way I felt when I saw the soup, and I enjoyed it so much, and I thought I couldn't eat another drop. But when I saw the roast beef, and my compliments to the cook for that," he says, "I knew there was room for more. And then when in came the chocolate cake with the caramel running through it like a golden vein of sweetness, I knew I could eat more. And I probably could eat another slice, but I truly am indeed full." And the king laughed, and he laughed, and he laughed, and he says, "You've told me a good tale and taught me a lesson too, and so you shall stay the night." And he says, "But I wish you could stay with me. I need a good storyteller." "Ah," said the man, "the road is never full enough for me. It is the road that I love, and the road I shall travel on." And so it was. The next morning, after a good breakfast and lots to eat, and gifts besides to keep him on the road, that the storyteller traveler went on his way, and he went on this way down the road, traveling until he told the storyteller to another storyteller, who told it to another storyteller, who told it to me, and now I've told it to you. And that's just the story I just told.
Thank you, Norman. That was great. I love that. I definitely haven't heard you tell that recently. I don't know if anyone else has, but like,
Well, that's a different version. I like to vary up the contents in the bucket.
It's great. It's lovely. Okay. Satish, did you want to tell something? Did I miss you before? No, you're sure? No one else in the storytelling cafe. We're good. In which case we shall go round again. See how far we get. Shall I tell you a tale? I've got to tell a story on Friday, so if can I just use you as my practice?
Yes.
Because I don't normally tell stories here. I normally sing songs, but I'm gonna
I'm going to leave for a minute, but I will come back before the end of the show.
Lovely. Well, we will see you when you're back then, my dear. Okay. Let me spotlight myself. I don't even know how to spotlight myself. Here we go. Oh, there we are. Okay. So this is a story that I've been telling for a while, that I tell in kind of various different ways. And it's a story that I believe comes from Greece. A lot of my stories and things I'm working on at the moment are stories that have women at their centers, because so often the stories that we kind of tell that sort of seem to last are stories with kind of quite a lot of male kind of prominent characters. So I actively seek out ones that are kind of the opposite. And this story is called The Fourth Daughter, and it goes like this. Once upon a time, not so very long ago, in Greece, there was a mother, and this mother had 4 daughters. And 4 daughters is a lot of daughters for any mother, as you can imagine. And so she had to work very hard just to keep food on the table. She would go out to work every single day. She would work morning till night just to make sure there was enough money, and there was always a meal for the 4 of them. And even though there was enough money for food, well, after that, money was a little scarce. 4 daughters is a lot, as I said. But every year, even though normally the girls had to rely on hand-me-downs, every year she would buy 1 new coat. And that coat would be for the first daughter, her eldest daughter. And then that daughter would wear it for a year, and it would get a little bit worn, but there was still some wear in it. And at the end of the year, the coat would be passed down to the second daughter. And even though it was a little bit worn, the second daughter would wear it and wear it and wear it until it was a little bit too small for her. And in the 3rd year, the coat would be passed down to the third daughter. And by this point, the coat was getting a little bit threadbare and had the odd hole in it, but the third daughter did the best to mend it. And she would wear it for a whole year, and then at the end of the third year, it would pass to the fourth daughter. And that coat, even though it had been new 4 years before, by the time it got to the fourth daughter, it had tears in it that she tried to mend, and it had holes in it, and it just didn't keep her warm in the winter. And so one winter, when it was particularly cold, and it was a really cold winter's day, and her mother had gone out to work already, and there wasn't enough firewood to heat the rest of the house, and so she put that coat around her, but still the wind whistled through it. And so she went to her sisters for help. She went to the first daughter, the eldest, and she said, "I'm so cold, sister. Can you help me find something warm just to keep me together?" And the eldest daughter said, "I'm so sorry, sister. I have to clean and sweep the house today. I can't help you. Go and ask your other sister." And so she went to the second eldest, the second daughter, and she said, "Sister, I'm so cold, and even this old coat isn't keeping out the cold. Can you help me find something warm?" And the second sister said, "I'm so sorry, sister. Today I have to clean all the sheets and do the laundry. I can't help you. Go and ask your other sister." And so she went to the third daughter, the third youngest, the third oldest. And she said, "Sister, can you help me? It's so cold today in this coat. I need to find something warm." And the third daughter said, "I'm so sorry. I have to prepare the food for tonight's meal. I can't help you." "I know. Why don't you go out for a walk? The walking will keep you warm, and who knows, you might find something warm along the way." And so, with nothing else to do, that's what the fourth daughter did. She wrapped that coat with all its holes and its tears around her, and she walked out from her house. And she walked 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 until she came to a forest. And at the entrance to the forest path, there were 2 tall trees either side. And she was just about to walk through the trees when suddenly she noticed something glistening in the sunlight. Between these 2 trees, there was a beautiful, intricate spider's web, sparkling with the dew. And so very carefully, she stepped around it to the other side. And as she did so, she heard a little voice. A little voice. It was the spider right in the center of the web. And the spider said, "Thank you. Most people would have just walked straight through this beautiful web I made, but you noticed. Thank you so much." And the little girl said, "Of course. Why would I spoil something so beautiful?" And the spider said, "So where are you off to today, little girl?" Little girl said, "My coat is tattered and torn. I'm searching for something warm." And the spider said, "Well, may your kindness keep you warm until you find that thing." And the little girl bid the spider goodbye and headed along into the forest. She walked and she walked and she walked and she walked and she walked. And then she heard on the ground a little noise. And the noise went, "Twink, twink, twink." And she looked down. There was a tiny bird on the ground. She said, "Oh, you poor little bird, how did you end up there?" And the bird said, "Oh, I haven't learnt to fly properly yet, and I fell out of my nest. I don't suppose you could put me back in again." Now, I should say at this point that unless a bird specifically asks you to put it back in, you should probably leave it on the ground if it falls out. But in this case, it had specifically asked, so it was fine. So the little girl said, "Of course I can put you back in." And she picked up the little bird and put it back in its nest. And the little bird said, "Thank you, that's really kind. Where are you off to today?" The little girl said, "My coat is tattered and torn, and I am searching for something warm." And the bird said, "Well, may your kindness keep you warm until you find that thing." And so the little girl walked on and on and on and further into the forest. And the trees grew closer together. And there was one gap that she had to go through the path, and there was a bramble around the tree, but there was no way of getting through unless she went past it. And so she squeezed herself through that gap in the trees, but as she did so, the bramble caught on that tattered and torn coat and ripped the remaining bits of it until there was just one piece of material left. And the little girl sat down the other side of the bramble and just began to sob. She said, "My coat is tattered and torn. even more so now, and I'll never find something warm. And she began to cry. And her cries and her sobs were so plaintive that they carried to the field the other side of the forest. And in the field the other side of the forest, there was a little lamb listening. And when the lamb heard those cries, they were so sad, the lamb made his way from the field and all the way into the forest to find where the sound was coming from. And when he saw the little girl, he said, "Little girl, what's the matter?" And she said, "My coat is tattered and torn, and I'll never find something warm." The lamb said, "You poor thing." And the lamb could see the remains of her coat on the bramble. And the lamb said to the bramble, "Why did you rip the coat off the little girl?" The bramble said, "I'm really sorry, I'm stuck round this tree." And the lamb said, "Well, in which case, you can help make amends. I am going to walk round you, bramble, and when I do so, the tufts from my wool will card onto you. And then the little girl can take my wool and make herself something warm." And the bramble agreed. It really hadn't been his fault. He did want to make amends. And so the lamb went round and round and round the bramble. And sure enough, as she did so, little tufts of wool were on the bramble. She said to the little girl, "Now, take those tufts of wool. All you need to do is spin them into yarn and then have someone weave them into cloth, and you will have a beautiful blanket to keep you warm." And the girl said, "Oh, thank you so much, lamb. That's so kind." And she took all the little tufts of wool and she made them into a little ball. And thanking the bramble and the lamb, she made her way back through the forest. And she walked and she walked and she walked, and then she looked at the tufts of wool in front of her. And she said, "It's all very well to have some tufts of wool, but my sisters are all busy with the housework and my mother is at work, and I don't have anyone to spin it into yarn for me. They're all too busy." And she began to sob again. And she sobbed and she walked. She came past the place where the little bird was that she'd helped. And the little bird called out from his nest, said, "Little girl, what on earth's the matter?" The little girl said, "Well, I met a lamb who was so kind to give me some of her wool, but my sisters are busy and my mother's at work and there's nobody to spin it into yarn for me." And the little bird said, "Well, you helped me and so I shall help you." The little girl said, "Well, how will you do that?" And the little bird said, "Watch." And the little bird took that big tuft of wool and flew up into the sky and flew round and round and round and round until the wool was stretched out and twisted until it made the most perfect yarn. And then as the bird flied down, the little girl wound that yarn up until it was a beautiful ball of wool. And the girl said, "Oh, thank you so much." And the bird said, "That is not a problem. You were kind to me, I shall be kind to you. Now all you need to do is find someone to weave this yarn into a beautiful woolen blanket and you will be warm." And the little girl smiled and thanked the bird and went on her way. But as she headed to where she would leave the forest, she looked at the ball of yarn and she thought, "My sisters are busy with the housework. My mother's busy at work. There is no one to weave this into a blanket for me and I shall stay cold." And she began to sob again. And as she did so, she suddenly realized she was where she'd entered the forest. And a little voice from the center of that beautiful web said, "Little girl, what's the matter?" And the little girl said, "Well, I have this beautiful yarn that the lamb gave me and the bird spun for me, but I don't have anyone to weave it for me, so I'm still cold." And the spider said, "Did you not see my web earlier? I am the best weaver in the whole of the forest. You give me that yarn and I will weave it for you." And so the spider took the yarn. And between those two trees, she weaved it forwards and backwards and backwards and forwards and forwards and backwards. And she weaved it up and down and down and up and down and up until when she had finished, between those two trees was a beautiful piece of cloth. And the little girl very carefully took it down and wrapped it round her. And it was the most beautiful woolen blanket that anyone had ever seen. She thanked the spider and she headed back home. And when she got home, well, her mother was already home from work and her sisters had finished their jobs. And as they sat by the fire and they ate their supper, she told them the story. And that night, when she went to bed, her sisters and her mother carefully took the blanket and they spent their evening sewing onto the blanket. A spider and a lamb and a bramble and a bird. So that not only would the little girl have a blanket to keep her warm, she would also have a story. And there ends my tale. Thank you for listening. Oh, I do love that story. It's immense fun to tell. When I tell it to children, sometimes I have cotton wool with me so they can see like the tufts. I like it because it tells you how like cloth is made, as well as like being a lovely story. Okay, we are going to go around again. I'm trying to work out where we are. So if John's not here, Chris, do you have another story you can share?
Yeah, I do.
Awesome.
And bear with me. I'm just getting over a little springtime flu.
Yeah, no.
And one thing I didn't mention about my stories, they're all personal stories.
Yeah.
All right. It's 3 a.m. and I can't sleep because I'm up wondering what I would do if my wife and 2 young kids were ever attacked by a grizzly bear. I mean, would I have the courage to stand up to it and just do whatever I can do to protect them? Or would fear hijack my decisions, causing me to freeze, or even worse, run away? I don't know. And that's why this scenario has bothered me, haunted me, since the moment I first became a father. Fortunately, there aren't any grizzly bears in our neighborhood, but there have been several break-ins and robberies. Our landlord works the night shift, so he installed this big fancy security system in his luxury apartment upstairs. But downstairs, in our barely basic 2-bedroom, I'm left to be my family's security system. So when my wife tells me she saw a mouse run across the kitchen floor, I see it as an opportunity to prove myself. The next day, I run out to the store and get 1 jar of premium organic peanut butter that's just like me, little chunky. And after everyone goes to sleep, I put a little bit of that peanut butter on a trap and strategically place it in our kitchen. Now, this night we're experiencing waves of heavy rain and wind. It looks like someone's throwing buckets of water up against the window. And when the wind hits the house, you can feel the walls creak and groan. Around 11 o'clock, I'm just watching the news and pop, the power goes out. Sometime in the middle of the night, I wake up to a bang. And I remember, my mousetrap. So I get out of bed wearing nothing but my boxers, flick the light switch and realize the power's still out. Then I hear it again. Bang, bang. So now I'm thinking the mouse must have got its tail caught in the trap, so it's running around the kitchen, slapping it on the walls and cabinets. So now I'm running down the hall in the dark, in my boxers, trying to get to this mouse before it tears up our kitchen. And right before I turn the corner, bang, 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 and I stop. Because that doesn't sound like a mouse. That sounds like a rat, and a big one. So I grab a broom out of the closet and hold it like a spear from Wakanda, because I know I only have 1 shot to stab this thing before it tries to bite me. So carefully I creep around the corner and then leap into the kitchen, only to see my mousetrap right where I left it, untouched. Now I'm standing there wondering what's making that noise. And from the kitchen door, by my son's bedroom, bang, bang, bang! Startled, I spin around to see the shape of a dark figure pounding on the door. That's when I realized it wasn't a mouse, it wasn't a rat. That was the sound of someone trying to break into our apartment. And just then, my son comes out of his bedroom in his Batman pajamas, and behind me I hear the footsteps of my wife and daughter coming down the hall. So out of pure instinct, I turn the broom sideways and slam all my body weight up against the door, trying to keep whoever wanted in out. But now I'm close enough to see that there are actually 3 figures pressing to get in, and they're all bigger than I am. And when they see me, they erupt into shouting, and this causes my daughter to scream and my son to burst into tears. And at this point, I'll be real. I was scared, because this wasn't some imaginary grizzly bear in my head. This was real, and I knew if I couldn't keep this door shut, whoever wanted in could possibly hurt my family. And that thought, it terrified me. but it was that feeling of fear that told me I need to do something. So I closed my eyes and pressed my face up against the window so they could see it clearly. And I did the one thing I felt would turn these intruders away. I grit my teeth and I growled. But I growled like I was delivering a contract written in my own blood that guaranteed if they dared cross this threshold, I will show them exactly how ferocious a protective parent can be. And when I opened my eyes, their shouting was replaced with the soft sound of rain. But now the figure up front had his arms fully extended, revealing there was only a thin pane of glass in between my chest and his gun. And when I saw this, all hope just left my body, because just like a grizzly bear, these hands, they're no match for a gun either. And that's when I hear, "Sir, drop the stick," followed by my wife, "Babe, I think it's the police." 5 minutes later, 3 very wet police officers are standing in the center of our kitchen. Turns out the wind from the storm shook the house so bad, it triggered one of the motion detectors from my landlord's security system upstairs. This sent a silent alarm to the police station. So when they responded and started looking through windows and pounding on doors, they saw me in the kitchen, in my boxers, with a broom, growling. They thought they stumbled across a domestic situation. Eventually, I got to share my side of the story. And once I was done, the officer who pulled the service weapon stepped up and said, So you mean to tell me I almost shot you because you was trying to catch a mouse with a broom? What? Don't you know all you need is peanut butter and a trap? My wife is not going to believe this. 15 years later, my young kids, they're now college students. And you might not believe this, but we have never been attacked by a grizzly bear. But if you were to ask me, what would I do? Would I fight? Would I run away? I'll still be real and say, I don't know. But after the night I tried to protect my family from a mouse, I am a little bit more confident that I wouldn't just run away. Thank you.
Wow. That was a roller coaster. God. Thank you so much, Chris. That was amazing.
Thank you.
I just love the way you tell. It's fabulous. All right. Evita, are you back with us? Are you just still listening, or do you just still listening? That's cool. Okay. Who have we got? I'm just don't know who I've got and who I've lost. I think we might have lost the Storytelling Cafe. In which case, then Keith, I think we're coming to you next. Is that all right?
I do, yeah.
Lovely. Let me start.
Right. I just want to stay going. Right. Okay. There was a young man called Jack, and he wasn't very clever. And all his people in the village, or the lads in the school, they just laughed at him. Jack, you're so daft. You can't look after yourself. Ah. And he went and he told his mother, and his mother was getting old, and his mother was really getting concerned because she was getting so old, and saying, Jack, you can't look after your son. You've no brains. You'll have to go up to the old woman that lives on the hill and ask her to sell you some brains. And so next morning he went up, and he also said to him, "Now just be pleasant, just pass the time of day a little bit before you ask for some brains." And so he went up the hill, and the next day he went and he knocked on the door, and the old lady opened the door. Said, "Now then, Jack, what can I do for you?" I said, "Well," I said, "it's not a bad day, is it? No, a bit of cold wind, off the North Sea. Isn't it?" But the sheep looked all right in the field, eh? So he felt he'd passed the time of day. Said, Missus, can you sell me some brains? Because I want to look after myself. And she said, well, what kind of brains do you want? Because I ain't got any teacher's brains, and I haven't got any soldier's brains, I ain't got any king's brains, and I ain't got any storyteller's brains. What kind of brains do you want? Any sort of brains, he said. All right, she said. Come back tomorrow with the heart of the thing you love the best and answer me this question. What runs but has no feet and legs? And so he said, right, I'll come back tomorrow. And he comes back tomorrow and he knocks on the door and the old lady said, now then, Jack, are you going to answer me that question? What runs but has no feet and legs? He said, oh, I don't know. She says, oh, Jack, come back tomorrow with the heart of the thing that you love the best. And answer me this question. What's round and yellow, but isn't gold? And again, he came back the next day and says, I don't know what's round and yellow. I don't know. Jack, she said, look, tomorrow come back with the heart of the thing that you love the best. And answer me this question. What has no legs and has two legs and has four legs? And he went away scratching his head and somebody's neighbour come and said, Jack, come on, quick. Yeah, your mother's not very well. And he went in the house upstairs and there she was lying and she wasn't very well. And she said, Jack, have you got any brains? So you look after your son? No, I ain't. Says, oh. And she closed her eyes and she died. And he realised that the thing he loved the best was his mother. But he hadn't the heart to cut her heart out and take up to the old lady. So he borrowed a sack from the next door neighbour and he put her body in, then he took it up there. And knocked on the door. The old lady said, no, Jack, you brought me the heart thing you love the best. Hey, I brought my mother. It's the heart. It's in her body. Oh, she said, that's no good, Jack. Oh, go away until you can answer those questions. And Jack, he left. And he was so sad. Sat down beside the road. It started to rain. And a young girl came along and said, what's the matter, Jack? Well, I have no brains and I can't look after my son and mother's dead. And I've got to go up with this to this old lady and take the heart of the thing I love the best. What am I going to do? Because I can't look after me, son. And she said, well, I can look after you. They said, well, can you cook? I can cook. Can you mend? I can mend. Can you clean? I am good with a brush. And so they went back and they became sweethearts and they fell in love and they were married. And all the people around his friends are amazed that this silly Jack could get such a wife. Oh. But, he still hadn't got any brains to look after his son. I know his wife was looking after him, but, it wasn't the same, was it? They sat down to tea one night and he looked at his wife and said, it's you that I love more than anything else. I'd like to take your heart up to the old lady and give it her. And she said, well, you didn't have to take the heart out of your mother's body, did you? No, we'll both go up tomorrow. And so they went up to the lady's house the next day. The lady opened the door. "Neil and Jackie, you brought me the heart of the thing you love the best." "Hey, it's in the body of my wife here." And but she had those 3 questions. Well, what runs but has no feet and legs? And his wife, Sally, she whispered to him, "It's a stream, it's a river, it runs. It's a river, it's a stream, it's a beck." He said, "That's right," she said. "Well, what's round and yellow and shiny but isn't gold?" And Jack scratched, "I don't know." And his wife said, "It's the sun." "It's the sun, missus." You're right, you're right." And then she asked the question, "Well, what has no legs, and then 2 legs, and then 4 legs?" Jackie scratched his head, "I don't know." And his wife whispered and said, "It's a tadpole." "It's a tadpole, missus." Right? "There you are. You've got your brains," the old lady said. And Jack looked down on the table and in his pockets and went, "Oh, where's my brains?" The old lady says, "The brains are in the ear of your missus." And so Sally and Jack, they went back down the hill hand in hand, because in his wife's head there's enough brains for both of them.
Thank you, Keith. I haven't heard that story for ages. It's like literally years. I love that story. So nice to hear it.
I know it's a traditional Lincolnshire story, but I know that there's a Scottish version, I think, as well. So
Yeah, I can't remember who I first heard tell it. I think it might have been Suzanne Arnold I first heard it from. I can't remember. It's a very long time ago, but
Yeah.
it's really nice to hear it again. I love it. I think we have time for one more story from Norman. Do you have another tale for us?
Yes, I have. In fact, I was reminded by Chris of a story, so I'll be happy to tell it. Now, I realize also that I really do have to keep the brush closer by. I tend to sit around. I know that story is a pottle of brains.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I love that story because in it, my friend who tells it, and I was just talking to her yesterday, was that she says, "Can you do this? Can you do that?" "Yes." Because, "Can you love me?" He says, "Oh, Jack, I could do that best of all." And just this idea that she's fallen in love with him and just looking for the chance. He never asked, so she asked for him. Anyways, and the rest of the story proceeds as it is. Okay, on with the tale. This story comes from the Tlingit people on the west coast of British Columbia. And it starts off with an old man who was so old that he had outlived everyone who he knew and who knew him. His children, his grandchildren, even his grandchildren. Somehow, he just kept on living in his great house. And the people, they'd forgotten all about him living in that house up the slope, and so he was so lonely. He had nobody to talk to, nobody to hear stories from. And so one day he says to himself, as he was pounding some dried cranberries and salmon fat for the winter coming up, he said, "I'm useless to everybody, and I'm no good to anyone. So I think what I will do is I'm going to go into the mountains and feed myself to a grizzly bear. At least I'll be some good to somebody." And so he just finished pounding up the dried cranberries mixed with salmon fat, and he put that aside in a tub, and he set off, following the stream that went up the mountain. The stream went higher and higher and higher into the country of the grizzly bears. And he came enough, and sure enough, although they tend to live solitary, there was a grizzly bear, a big one, a huge one. And as soon as the grizzly bear saw the old man, it stood up on its hind legs and went, "Arr!" As if to say, who are you and what are you up here for? And the man suddenly dropped the whole idea of feeding himself to the grizzly bears. So, but he managed to stammer out, I've made up some pounded dried cranberries and salmon fat, and I come up here to invite you to a feast. And the grizzly bear looked at him for a moment and fell down on its four legs as if to say, okay, I'll be there tomorrow. And so he fell on his four legs and disappeared into the trees. And the man ran down the mountain. He ran and he ran and he came to his own dwelling. He opened up the door and there was all, he thought to himself, I've just invited a grizzly bear. I think I invited his relatives too. What am I going to do? Well, what could he do? He just started pounding up more and more dried cranberries, more and more salmon fat, until he had enough to feed a dozen grizzly bears. And it's a good thing he did, because the next morning he opened up the door, and down the mountain was a long line of grizzly bears. Some big, some small, some thin, but they're all headed towards his lodge. And so he ran in and he had all the food laid out, and the grizzlies came in. There was one young grizzly bear who seemed to be leading a great old grizzle bear, and who seemed to be their chief. And they all came in and they sat down, and the old man filled vessels, and they began to eat with their paws and licking their paws and growling to each other as if holding conversation that grizzly bears have at a feast, whatever grizzly bears have at a feast when they have a conversation. And the old man, he just ate too. And last, when all of the vessels were licked clean and the paws were licked clean, and the great grizzly bear stood up and let out a growl as if to say, we thank you for your feast. And then he fell down on all fours and went out the door, and then followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 11 more grizzly bears, until last they were all gone except for the last one, and that was the youngest. Youngest one stopped at the door, turned around, and instead of growling, he spoke in a human voice. And the story of that is in another legend. But he said, we too in the mountains are lonely, and nobody ever invites us to feasts. But we thank you for your hospitality, and the chief wanted me to make sure that you knew this. And so he dropped on all fours and went back into the shadows of the mountains up. And when the man sat there alone in the silence, wondering at what would happen next, well, you know, it was strange, but the people in the village could not help but notice. They couldn't help but notice that 12 huge grizzly bears had come visit the old man. And so he must be important. He must be somebody special. He must have some special strength and knowledge. And so they began to visit him. And indeed, he was an old man, but he had much good knowledge. And so for the rest of his life, he was no longer lonely. He was never left alone. Because he was a man who had feasted 12 grizzly bears. And that's the end of that story.
Thank you, Norman. Good to have extra grizzly bears tonight. Love it.
Chris, thank you for reminding me of that story.
That was great. Thank you so much, everyone. That is all we have time for this evening. John isn't back, so I'm going to do the parish notices. So tomorrow, live in the World Storytelling Cafe, is Neelima's puppet show. It's at 2:00, I believe. It's the Ramayana. I hope I've said that right. So if you are in Marrakesh, I'm not sure if it's been broadcast, but if it is, then watch it. And if it's not, and if you're in Marrakesh, then you can see it. And then Friday, David Heathfield is doing stories for children at 6:00 UK time. And then this Sunday at 6:00, it is hang on a sec, I'll come to it. So this Sunday at 6:00 is Mike's worldwide story round. So you're all really welcome to that. And Evita, do you want to 15th element round with Maria and me? Is that on the 15th? Got you. Do you want to come off? Can you speak? Is baby there? Can you say a little bit more about it?
Yes, hello, I can speak softly. Yes,
Okay.
we're doing the elements round because remember the World Storytelling Day was the element of water, deep water. And I hosted one of the things and it was really beautiful. So I'm thinking it would be nice to keep on with the elements.
Lovely.
So last month, and next with Maria Gillen and myself, we're going to do on the 15th, which is Thursday, 6 p.m. We're going to do the next element, that is air.
Air next. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the 15th of May, Thursday, 6:00, yeah?
Yeah, 6:00, and then we probably go for 1.5 or 2, depending.
Lovely. Okay. On the element
So-
of air this time.
Yeah, just air
Beautiful.
is the theme. That should be pretty wide, and yeah, come in and hear a story. It would be lovely.
Fabulous. Thank you, Evita. That's great. I think that is all our parish notices for today. Thank you all so much for coming. And obviously, Tales and Tunes will be back on the first Wednesday of next month. I have no idea what day that is, but the first Wednesday in June. See, look, just as I'm about to do it, done John Rowe's job for him, he comes back in the room. So we will be back on the first Wednesday in June, whatever date that is, and all the other stuff is in between. John, I have said Ramayana tomorrow. I've said David.
No,
Heathfield on
Raviana is
Friday.
not. No, we're not broadcasting Raviana.
Okay, so that is just
No,
live. We weren't
Raviana's
sure.
live at the cafe.
So if at the cafe, then you can see that at 2:00. I've said David is on Friday at 6:00. Yes, we got
That's
that right.
absolutely right.
And Mike's Worldwide Story Round is on Sunday at 6:00. Yes.
Fantastic.
And Evita's next elemental thing with Maria is on the 15th of May, Thursday the 15th, also
I
at
better
6:00.
get that up on. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll speak to you, Evita, because I've got to do the schedule from. We're only got the schedule up at the moment from up till Sunday.
Up till Sunday, so we'll get the next ones up. Thank you so much. There's everything. Are there any more parish notices that I've missed, John, or did I do them?
No,
all?
that's magnificent. I scraped in after the
And I'd
phone
already
call.
done your job for you. See?
Well, I had every confidence you would, but just
course.
being, not that I'm a control freak, but no, but it's been great tonight. We have in fact been
Yeah.
worldwide. We've had
We have
Boston
indeed.
in the USA. The first town I ever put my feet down in the States was Boston. I never went out the airport, but I met the met the immigration officers in Boston. They were very straight. They were all ex-Marines, I think, with crew cuts, and they said, and I had a young teenager with earphones on, and they said that was very rude, and they told him off and said he should call him sir and stuff. So I
sounds like Boston.
Yeah, it was very Boston. It was very different when I got to Texas. but so we had Boston, we've had Toronto, we've had Lincolnshire, the independent kingdom of Lincolnshire, the Suffolk, and Evita via Switzerland via Paris, and then we've had loads in the cafe. We've had a multitude in the cafe. That's a good night.
There's a good night, and they will be back for more of the same.
Myself at the weekend for Weird and what. Anyone who happens to be in Suffolk, in the county of Suffolk, actually the centre of the world, You know,
It
I
is.
know the geezer whose name we don't mention, beginning with T, thinks his establishment is the centre of the world, but Suffolk is in fact the centre of the world. And and there's a very fantastic Weird and Wonderful Wood, which is a fair. Well, it's a little festival, but there has loads of woody stuff going on it.
Loads of weird and wonderful wood.
Loads of weird and wonderful wood. I'm storytelling there, and there'll be bands and all sorts of things, including Mark from the Levelers Up doing a solo set.
Nice,
So,
nice,
I mean, marvelous.
Busy
So everyone have
storytelling
a great
time all the way around.
weekend.
Yes.
Enjoy yourself. It's time. It's the beginning of the season for festivating. So
It is indeed.
all enjoy yourselves festivating.
And we will see you next time here. First Wednesday.
Great to see you, Chris.
Lovely
Thank
to see
you.
you all, guys. I'll see you next
See you.
time.
Safe
Take
Safe
care.
journey to
Everyone
everyone.
stay safe.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks, Waleed.